Good evening to all of you, and thank you for joining us on 13 Plus. I'm Mary Coleman. Well, you may see them in gas stations, convenience stores, bars, and even social halls. Machines that look like slot machines, but play by a whole different set of rules. After spotting so-called skill games in states all across the country, our national investigative team wanted to know, are they even legal? As our team discovered, the answer is quite complicated. Take a look.
Ron Foreman spends a lot of time these days looking back, high up on a tractor seat in rural Missouri. Seeing the leveled path behind him is a lot like seeing his own life in the rear view. Everything cut down and crushed, not by a machine, but through the making of mind.
My mom told me a couple weeks ago, she said, "There's something wrong in your brain."
For years, Foreman has struggled with a gambling addiction he says cost him everything. In 2004, he says he voluntarily added himself to his state's problem gambling list, excluding him from visiting any licensed casinos in Missouri.
I was under control, really pretty fine, really good there.
That was until 2020, when he says he relapsed and began gambling again heavily, eventually cashing out a settlement check from a car accident and blowing every single dollar.
I had a $150,000 cash in October, and by December I was broke.
But Foreman's fortunes weren't lost this time among the bright lights and loud bells of a casino. He says he bet it all in gas stations and grocery stores in Missouri on unregulated video machines that look a lot like the slots you see in Vegas. They're called skill games.
But it's an everyday, all day, every chance he possibly can get.
Foreman's girlfriend, Vicki Young, discovered that using GPS data from Ron's phone, documenting every time he visited spots with skill games, from the grocery store nearby that has them tucked between the eggs and milk to the gas station just down the street.
121 times he stopped there in 2021, 289 times at the same gas station in 2022.
Stops made and money spent $1 at a time in machines that are spreading across the nation. Those machines aren't slot machines like this one. The heavily regulated and taxed games based on luck that you'll find in casinos in states with legalized gambling. They're skill games like this one that look and sound similar. But with skill machines, players don't take a chance, they make a choice to win. And in many states, they've ended up in a gray area of what some consider unregulated gambling.
There are no regulatory restrictions on them, and they're literally hiding in plain sight.
Bill Miller is CEO of the American Gaming Association, or AGA, the powerful lobbying group that represents the legal gambling space, one of the most heavily regulated industries in the country. He says legal casinos are now competing with operators who are not under scrutiny. An AGA study from last year estimates that in 2021, there were at least 500,000 unregulated gaming machines across the country, taking in more than $100 billion in bets.
I think the greatest danger is the lack of consumer protections. They are plugged into the wall, and they operate exactly like a slot machine without any of the protections for someone who might have a problem with gambling or somebody who might not be 21.
Our national investigative team spotted skill games in gas stations, convenience stores, and bars in Kentucky, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and Virginia. Although some machines we saw clearly state there are age requirements to play, or that ID is needed to claim any winnings, many machines have none of that, and no one verifying age or barring problem gamblers from betting. A recent class action lawsuit against a skill manufacturer even included pictures of kids playing the machines, and also raised other concerns we've repeatedly heard from opponents about the fairness of their payouts, the impact on addicted gamblers, and the lack of security for players or the people who handle the cash.
If you're going to put in charge of that control an store clerk who's making hot dogs and selling Slurpees, and also is going to be in charge of ensuring that people are of age and don't have gambling problems, I think that's crazy and very terrible policy.
But policy is where this kind of play gets tricky. It comes down to the difference between gambling and gaming, and that depends on who you ask. Many states have outlawed slot machines outside casinos, but the laws are murky, so these machines aren't considered slots. We're back to those two special words again, skill games. Still, our national investigative team obtained video, pictures, and closed case files from law enforcement and gaming commissions across the country showing skill or slot-style machines they consider illegal, being seized in states including Florida, Idaho, and Michigan. But there's a lot of contradiction. While one Missouri prosecutor seized skill games and crushed them in a public event 2 years ago, saying they're illegal, lawmakers there are still fighting to get a formal law to make it crystal clear. And in Virginia, there's been a total flip-flop. Lawmakers voted to ban the machines in 2021, but a court decision let them stay up and running until the state Supreme Court reinstated the ban in mid-October.
I never buy into this gray area because to me, you're either legal or illegal. It's black and white. We're legal.
Michael Barley is in charge of communications for Georgia-based Pace-O-Matic, one of the biggest skill game makers in the country. He says they've repeatedly proven they're not games of chance, but those two words again, skill games that require some choice and interaction from the players themselves.
And so the skill in this is essentially choosing the square that creates tic-tac-toe.
Correct.
And unlike slots, Barley says skill machine players on their games can see the outcome and know whether the next game is a winner before risking any money.
There's skill in that, just involved in choosing to play before you ever put the money into the game. And then once you get there, sometimes there's multiple combinations. You have to pick the best one.
So when critics like the AGA or other people who have fought against these machines say that this is really just a matter of semantics, that the skill is nothing more than hitting a button, how do you respond to that?
I would say the courts don't agree with their position.
Surprisingly, Barley says many skill game makers and their supporters actually agree on one thing. They want regulation and are open to taxation.
There's not too many companies that walk in and say, hey, we would like you to put restrictions on the number of terminals we have, where they can be located, and we want you to tax us and enforce us.
Even without taxation, proponents of skill games have been vocal that the small businesses and charity organizations that host the machines benefit big.
Because what we do for the veterans of the United States with the revenue we get here compared to what we would be able to do if we didn't have them, it would be minuscule.
Commander Stephen Holmes leads the American Legion post in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. During COVID, he says they were struggling to stay afloat, and skill machines were a lifeline for them and many others.
Everything that we have here has come from the revenue from our skill game.
Holmes is joining a growing chorus of nonprofits and business coalitions who support regulating skill games. Groups like the AGA say those rules should include the kind of requirements casinos have when it comes to payout percentages and testing by state regulators to ensure fairness.
If it wasn't given back, they wouldn't be here.
But addicted gamblers know the cost of giving in when it feels like these machines are everywhere they turn.
It's like putting a buffet full of dessert at Overeaters Anonymous meeting.
For Vicki Young and her partner, Ron Foreman, that's meant swallowing losses totaling almost $400,000. Money meant for their life together, gone because of an addiction, spent on skill games that were anything but amusing.
It's hard because you have hopes and dreams and you just watch them just be thrown away and for nothing.
Now, the AGA study that you heard about there estimates that states across the nation have lost as much as $8 billion in state tax revenue to skill games that are unregulated. Be sure to stick with us throughout the week at 7 o'clock for stories similar to this. For now, we will leave you with a live look of Tucson. Things are looking gorgeous out there, but a bit chilly. And be sure to join us for 13 News Live at 10.